Good morning, everybody. We hope that you can hear us and see us very clearly this morning. And thanks again for joining us on our second webinar. This one is Wash Your Worries Away, which is to do with shower cleans. Hopefully at the moment you can see both myself and Michael Dean in the upper part of the screen and the presentation below that. You may have on the right hand side either quite a large toolbar which you can minimize using the little orange arrow, or if it's already minimized, you can press that orange arrow, that'll pop the toolbar out, and there's a function ask questions. We've muted all the microphones because it can get a bit clunky and a bit disorientated when people are trying to ask questions during the presentation. But if you've got questions at any point, please do use it in that question function, and what will happen is at the end of the presentation, I'll read those questions out to Michael. He can answer them in full for you, but if for any reason you want some additional information, obviously just let us know, and Michael will arrange for a private phone call where you can kind of talk through anything in great detail. Right, I'll pass you over to Michael now for the presentation. I'll disappear off your screen and I'll leave Michael to it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. So thank you for the introduction. So yes, my name is Michael Dean, and I'm the Water Systems Manager at Total Water Solutions. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about shower cleans and the importance of them. So we titled it Wash Your Worries Away, Shower Cleans. So today we're going to talk about the legislative requirements, how to comply with HSG 274 Part 2, the dangers of a dirty shower head, how to clean a shower head, and understanding what information is to be monitored and recorded. So LA take-up and all that, onto the legislative requirements. So the primer law for all this legislation is the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So under the Health and Safety at Work Act, every employer is under a duty to ensure, so far as reasonable and practical, the health, safety and welfare of all employees. That's section 2. So duties under this act extend to risk from Legionella bacteria which may arise from work activities. So as an employer or a person in control of the premises, you are responsible for the health and safety and need to take the right precautions to reduce the risks of exposure to Legionella. So basically the take-home message is, sure you're all aware, is it the primer law is the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, which all the legislation comes from. So this is all in hierarchical status on the right-hand side. So you can see Health and Safety at Work Act, but the legislation again linked to Legionella and Legionella disease is COSH because it's a substance hazardous to human health. The management of health and safety at work regulations, and also we mustn't forget the water supply, the water regulations, 1999 Act of Parliament from July 1999. Yeah. The guidance which supports all this legislation is again shown on the right hand side. So you've got an approved code of practice, L8, guidance, I hasten to add. Supporting the L8 is the HSG 274. We lean heavily on part 2 because that's hot and cold water systems. Other supporting advice which are very useful is the HTM 0401 and also the HSE website. If any of you got logins to the HSE website, or please view it regularly, there's quite a lot of updates on there and really quite specific information on it, which is you'll find very, very useful. And you can sector it into water systems advice as well, which is good. So there's a hierarchy. So you've got the legislation, Health and Safety at Work Act, but guidance, okay, supporting that. A bit more information on the LA take-up. We're talking about the new 4th edition, which always makes me chuckle because it's been in effect now for 6 years, okay? And supporting that is the 8580, which is a guide to risk assessing for water systems for Legionella control. So I've emphasised this quite a lot already, saying that it's guidelines. It's not the law. However, it has special legal status. So if you are prosecuted for a breach of health and safety law, and it's proved that you did not follow the relevant provisions of the code, you would need to demonstrate that you've complied with the law in some other way, or a court would find you at fault. So I suppose what we're saying is, no, it's not the law. However, you might as well follow it pretty much verbatim because it's just so much easier than going off on a tangent with things that you think might just be just as well. So my advice is always follow this and use it. It's a good piece of documentation. Okay. So if you look at it from a high level, L8 is what you have to do, and supporting L8 is HSG 274 Part 2, and that tells you how to do it. Okay. So as many of you are, I'm sure, aware, you will have a responsibility to, if you have look after hot and cold water systems, to have them fixed and also to have them maintained. So that covers water fittings, which we're going to talk about today, which is the showers, but also taps and boilers are covered in there as well. So yeah, part 2 is the one that you need to download. If you haven't got it already, it's free of charge download from the hse.gov.uk. It talks about hot and cold water temperatures, hot and cold storage, and aerosol discharge. More of that later. So HSG 274 part 2, it has quite a task list, which is one particular part which we'll look at today. However, I think we need to put that into context, specifically with regard to shower cleans, which is the kind of basis of today's webinar. So the 6 risk components for Legionella bacteria are all highlighted in this little drawing here. Now, if any of you have been to my training sessions already, you'll notice that I talk about the fire triangle, okay, which is ironic because it's not a triangle, it's not a fire. However, same process, same rules apply with the fire triangle. All things must be aligned for you to get Legionellosis. So I think it's a good time now just to break that into a little bit more detail. So temperature, we talk about the danger zone. Legionella bacteria grow between the temperatures ideally between 20 and 45. So we need to keep our hots hot and our colds cold. Showers, because the body temperature will always be in the danger zone, the water coming out of those between 20 and 45. So that instantly puts them more at a risk. Condition, this is a condition of the water which is supplied by the outlet. So if it's, hopefully it should be coming from a good quality storage system or the mains or a chlorifier or water heater that's been serviced and in a good condition. So the water should be good to prevent nutrients for bacterial growth. Turnover, all outlets should be used a minimum of once a week. The whole thing with turnover is all you're doing is denying bacteria time to grow, and that's really, really crucial. So if you do have any little used outlets in any of your buildings and they're not used on a weekly basis or a minimum of a weekly basis, make sure they're flushed to increase turnover. And like everything that you do with regards to health and safety specific tasks, document it, write your name against it and sign it, okay? Aerosols. Aerosols are very important in Legionellosis or prevention of Legionellosis because the aerosol is the means of transmission of the bacteria itself. So next time you're in your shower, have a look at the ceiling and look at the downlighter and just see the droplets of water, the moisture, and every single one of those droplets could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bacteria inside that. And you potentially could be breathing that in. Showers, therefore, create aerosols, so they need to be managed and maintained. Population, quite important. It's basically the numbers of people that are passing the outlet. So you could have an outlet that's in a public area which is distributing bacteria. If it's more people pass it, then there's more chances of people catching the illness in the first place. And susceptibility. Hopefully we're all familiar with the concept of susceptibility. So what we're looking at is the males are 3 times more likely to catch the illness than females. That's due to quite often more workplace acquired illnesses in industrial settings. People who are susceptible have suffered from illnesses, lung illnesses, or immunosuppressed. Diabetics, interestingly, quite often more susceptible than others. So there are kind of areas of concern with regards to susceptibility. Heavy drinkers and smokers as well. Okay, and anybody over the age of 45 tends to have an increased risk. So they're the risk components, and like I say, they kind of are quite interesting to look into context. You can put that against showers. You can see where they all fit in. So task list from HSG 274 is, you can see that's the overall task list. These are tasks that you should be doing throughout the year for your water systems. So the key thing today, we're not going to talk about the others at different webinars, but the interesting task today is quarterly inspection and descaling disinfection shower heads. So that's documented in the task list on a quarterly basis that you must descale and disinfect your shower heads. Okay, that's the reason, that's the timings for this. A little bit more information there, and that's on page, got it next to me now, page 32. Showers and spray taps, dismantle, clean and descale removal parts, heads, inserts and hoses where fitted, quarterly, or as indicated by the rate of fouling or other risk factors, e.g. areas with high risk patients. It's quite a key point that, because we do talk about quarterly. However, if you live in an area which has got particularly hard water, you may find that you need to do that more often, or if you've got softer areas, you might not need to descale quite as often. However, you still may need to clean the bacteria off with a disinfectant. So if in doubt, always relate back to your risk assessment for more information. One thing we are quite keen on as well is, although these control measures are simple, they should be maintained. But the key thing was, if you can't do them yourself, so if you have a housing association with thousands and thousands of residents, you can advise tenants to regularly clean and disinfect showers yourselves. When you talk to the HSE about control measures, they always talk about a proportionate response. It would be a disproportionate response for you to go and disinfect quarterly 34,000 showers, if that's how many residents you've got. That wouldn't be possible. Okay, so in those sort of situations, when you've got general risk tenants, general lease tenants, you can advise them to do it themselves, and that is seen as adequate and proportionate response. Ways we've done that in the past is to put information leaflets into communal stairwells, or quarterly newsletters, or open evenings. We've had that before, and advise people what to do. So the information is there, and please help yourselves by giving the information out to all residents. So the dangers of a dirty shower head. Why you must have a clean shower head. Got a photograph in front of you now, which you can see is of a dirty shower head. You can see on the outside, you can see there's molds, there's bacteria on there. You can see the black slime. You can see that it's scaled up quite heavily as well. So that's not an ideal sort of situation. That would be a perfect place for bacteria to get a hold and grow. So again, all these control measures are relatively easily fixed, but they must be done. So that leads me on to the next slide. Shows a little bit more detail. That's an electron microscope of the surface of a shower that's been scaled up. You can see the lime scale and the sludge and general scum that's actually growing and developing on the surface of the shower head. That is a perfect place for biofilms to grow. You can see the angles on the surface of the lime scale. You can actually see the bacteria starting to form and grow as sludge. If we ever did disinfect that without doing a full descale, you'd find that the disinfectant would just go over the skirt of the top, the bacteria underneath will be protected by the biofilm. So that's why it's important, all these sort of things, to make sure that you're descaling it as well as using a sanitizer to kill the bacteria off. It's a two-part process. A bit more detail there. The biofilm, you can see the bacteria in more detail there, particularly dirty, that one. So it's really not nice. But warm temperatures as well, turnover, lack of turnover, give the bacteria plenty of time. Biofilms condition, so you've got the sludge to slime, which is a nutrient source for bacteria, and you've got a problem. So we talked about the problem. How do we solve it? This is the process. So we talked about how regularly the HSE guidelines recommend cleaning and descaling 4 times a year. So how do we do it? What do we need to do? So we need to first remove the lime scale or the biofilm, and then we need to kill off the bacteria. How do we do it? Well, as contractors, we use a chemical called Showerhead Plus. Showerhead Plus is a fantastic chemical because it's an acid, a mild acid, so it will descale, so we'll get rid of the lime scale. And there's also an indicator, a universal indicator in there, which tells you the pH of the chemical. So after a period of time, it will change colour, which tells you that it's not as effective as it should be, and it's time to be replaced. So linking with the chemical is a bactericide in there, which will kill the bacteria off as well. So it's a 2-part process, but in 1 chemical. So we use that, and it's very, very effective. So we've got one of our technicians on the right-hand side of the photograph there. This is the lovely Ed. As part of his day job is to go around to properties for us and descale shower heads. So it's quite keen to do, obviously this is a health and safety kind of based process. So it's kind of starts at the beginning with correct PPE. So you can see you've got correct safety goggles there. It is a mild acid. It's not particularly strong, but you certainly won't want to rub it in your eyes. So you can see that the chap there, Ed, has got his safety goggles on there. Rubber gloves. So yeah, it's any persistent, because we use this all day, persistent long-term use could cause skin issues. So it's really, really important to just keep yourselves covered up. And we just use disposable rubber gloves for those. And also, ideally, you should have an apron. We did take a photograph with Ed with his apron on, but because the flash of the camera kind of flashed back, it looked a bit quite hard to see. But yeah, you should really be having an apron just to protect your clothes as well from any acid splashes. Okay, so there you go. So it always starts off with correct PPE. So what's the process? So you can see on the right hand side, you can see a photograph of the bucket. So the shower head and hose is firstly removed. So the chemical is mixed up as a dilution of 3 parts of water to 1 part chemical. And that's quite important to make that distinction from the start, to make sure you get your concentrations correct. So they removed the chemical, the chemicals added into a suitable container. We used a bucket for this demonstration. The shower heads and hoses are removed and they're added into the chemical. And you can see there that's starting to fizz away because the lime scale is actually being broken down by the acid, forming carbon dioxide, and it's been bubbled away there. We'd also use a soft brush on the outside of the shower head itself, just to physically and mechanically remove the lime scale. But it's important to leave it for 2 to 5 minutes. The heavier hard water areas, you probably need to go nearer the 5 minutes, and if they haven't been used or haven't been descaled for a while, not part of a regular program, we have found that you might need to repeat the process and do it a little bit longer. But yeah, basically add it to the bucket, give it a good rinse off afterwards, and then it goes back onto the hose. So in that respect, it's not difficult. However, it's important to get it done and to use the correct PPE, and just keep your eye on the scale of the shower head after it's come out of the bucket, make sure it's done correctly. That's for a flexible shower head and hose. We have had issues in the past with fixed head showers because it's not quite as easy to do. Previously, we have sprayed fixed head showers with the chemical, but it can be quite awkward actually physically removing the chemical from the shower head itself. And it's important to do that because whoever gets in the shower next potentially is at risk from coming into contact with the chemical, which is not ideal. So what we use is a gel product from Showerhead Plus Gel, which is really, really good. So initially what we do is we get a brush to remove any soap scum off the shower head itself, physically do that first, and then we'd use an applicator to use the gel on the physical shower head itself and just rub it into all the holes there and make sure it's worked in. Leave it on there for approximately 5 minutes. Again, that varies on the condition of the shower head. If it's not been done for a while or it's been off the program, then it might need a little bit longer. Rinse it, okay, and then repeat as necessary. But once it's been done completely, then it's important at the end just to apply the shower head gel for another minute afterwards to make sure that it's really killing off the bacteria. Again, it's important to emphasize it's a 2-part process, descaling and sanitizing. So yeah, that's done. So you can see on the right hand side, it's not a bad one, it's pretty clean. And again, always rinse thoroughly with water after you've left the job to make sure the next user of the showers are going to get chemical on them. It is possible to do it yourself. I've had conversations with people who have done this at home. If you haven't got the proprietary chemical, you can do it by using a descaler. Again, it's a 2-part process. So use a descaler first. You can get these readily available from chemists, used for descaling kettles, but they're suitable for using on shower heads. They're absolutely fine. Plastic container. That's on the right hand side. You can see it going on, and it's quite interesting to see all the chemicals dissolving the lime scale. You see it all bubbling away there. You can see it going off. And again, just use a brush to make sure you're getting works in all the nooks and crannies and remove all the lime scale physically before you take it on to the next stage. Now, I'll put this in capital letters here since I'll underline it because it's quite important that descaler must be rinsed off, okay? Because the next stage of it, part 2, is to kill off the bacteria. Give it a good dose of bleach. But if you mix descaler and bleach together, you will get chlorine gas, which you do not want. Very, very dangerous. So I can't emphasize that enough. If you're doing this at home or you advise anybody else to do it, be very, very careful on the process. But yeah, descaling first, rinse it all off, then you can use a chlorine-based product after it's all been thoroughly descaled to kill off the bacteria. All possible. It's quite satisfying because I've done this myself. You get quite a lot of kind of gunge coming off it, so it's quite a satisfying in a kind of a warped way to see what comes off it. So as I've already said before, anything that's health and safety critical, if you're doing it, you must write your name against it. And if any of you ever come on my presentations and training days, a phrase I often use is if you've done it, but you're not signing your name against it, you've not done it. Okay. So it's in understanding here what information needs to be monitored and recorded. So what we're looking at here, this is the sort of things that we do as a contracting company. We carry out the risk assessments, we produce on-site logbooks, we do monthly control measures, so that could be temperature checks. We also do shower descales, annual storage system inspections, we do first-class consultancy, of course, and we review logbooks and control measures and do training courses, of one of which is today. And there you go. So just finishing off with some of our clients at the end, and there we go. That's thank you from us. Over to you, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Michael. I'm sure everybody will got quite a bit of value out of that. We've had a couple of questions come through, and what I'll do is I'll just ask them too, if you don't mind. And then obviously if anybody has further questions after this, or you can still ask questions now if you'd like, we'll get those over to Michael to get your answers. So first question is, can you use off-the-shelf supermarket brands cleaning products to do this?
Yes, you can, but as part of the presentation, I think it's always important to do this in a two-part process. So initially you've got to descale it, so you can use, and I've used those at home. What I've done is I've got quite a large rainhead shower, and I use basically a baking tray. So I've done that with a proprietary descaler. So you can do that. Sometimes because they're not as particularly strong as the acid that we use, they do take a little bit longer. So you could even use it overnight. Be wary of those on chrome surfaces, because if you've got a fancy shower head, they can sometimes be damaged. But I would have a go on it, but leave it for quite some time. I've done mine overnight. But then after that's been done, you must emphasize this a lot, is rinse that descaler off first, and then quite happily just go over it with a little bit of bleach just to sanitize and kill the bacteria off. So yes, you can.
Okay. Actually, probably a few questions from myself here. Obviously, I'm a resident of the northeast of England, and we have particularly soft water up here. So would we in fact still need to do the descaling in the northeast, even though it's not quite as hard water as what you find obviously in the Essex area?
I would say yes, but not as often. So I've seen this before. You will get always get minerals in the water, but a lot less of them. But over a period of time, they will start to build up. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean to say they're not there. So I would do that, but less often, and you probably find that you won't need as long to get rid of all the minerals. But yes, I would still descale, but I think the emphasis on that would be going over to the bleach to make sure all the bacteria are killed off.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay.
Sorry, the next question that came through was, can you just replace the shower head as well as do a clean?
Yes, you can, but I think these days with environmental awareness and trying to reduce our kind of impacts on the planet, you can reuse them. So you can discard them. We do have clients who basically throw them away. Now that's the kind of the NHS is sometimes do that. What we would suggest, and we do this for quite a few of our clients, is actually physically remove the shower head itself and replace it with another one, and take the dirty one away and clean that. We clean that in our offices. So that's what we can do. So you can have them on a rolling program. You can even get them color coded as well, so you know which cycle they're on. So that is an option. We have had challenges in the past with different brands of shower, because some residents actually prefer to have the same shower back. So that is something to take into consideration. But yeah, certainly you can dispose of them if you want, but I would recommend that you physically get them changed, get them cleaned, and swap them over. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. There hasn't been any other questions come through, so I think that brings us to our conclusion. Again, obviously from Michael and myself, we'd just like to thank you for joining us today. If you have any further questions, you most likely have our email addresses, but if not, you can always contact us through the general email address that we've got, which is tws@nwl.co.uk. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye.